What would you do if, just days after letting another man walk you home and laughing a little too loudly, you found legal papers waiting on your doorstep? Can a single night of harmless flirtation really destroy a marriage, or is there always more beneath the surface? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The evening air felt electric as I stepped out of Romano's bistro, my cheeks flushed from 2 glasses of wine and the undivided attention of Tyler Griggs. At 33, I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to have a man hang on my every word, to laugh at my jokes like they were the funniest things he'd ever heard. "You know, Irene," Tyler said, his voice smooth as he fell into step beside me, "I never realized how funny you were at the gym. You've been hiding this personality." I tucked a strand of auburn hair behind my ear, feeling giddy. "Well, maybe you just never paid attention before." The flirtation rolled off my tongue so easily, so naturally. When had I stopped feeling this way with Victor? Tyler chuckled, and the sound sent a little thrill through me. "Trust me, I'm paying attention now." We walked slowly down Maple Street, our conversation flowing like the wine still warming my veins. He told me about his job at the marketing firm, about his weekend hiking trips, about how he'd noticed me months ago, but never had the courage to approach me. I found myself laughing louder than necessary, my voice carrying in the quiet evening air. "You're married though, right?" Tyler asked, glancing at my wedding ring. I twisted the band around my finger, suddenly feeling its weight. "Yes, but—" I paused, searching for the right words. "Victor and I, we're more like roommates these days. He's always buried in spreadsheets, working late, barely talks to me anymore." "That's a shame," Tyler said, moving closer as we walked. "A woman like you shouldn't be ignored." My heart fluttered at his words. When was the last time Victor had complimented me? When was the last time he'd really looked at me, not just glanced up from his laptop with that distant expression? "Here's my building," I said as we approached the brick apartment complex where Victor, Maya, and I lived on the 3rd floor. I should have said goodbye at the corner, but I didn't want this feeling to end. Tyler stopped beside me, his hand brushing mine as he gestured toward the entrance. "Nice place. That your balcony up there?" I followed his gaze upward and froze. There, silhouetted against the warm light of our living room, stood Victor. Even from 3 stories down, I could see him gripping the balcony railing, his shoulders rigid with tension. How long had he been watching? "Oh," I breathed, my euphoria evaporating instantly. "Everything okay?" Tyler asked, following my gaze. That's my husband," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Tyler took a small step back. "Should I go?" Part of me wanted to tell him yes, to end this before it went any further. But another part of me, the part that had felt alive for the first time in months, rebelled against the idea. Why should I feel guilty for having a conversation, for laughing, for feeling attractive? "No, it's fine," I said, forcing a bright smile. "He's probably just getting some air." But Victor wasn't getting air. He was watching us, and even from this distance, I could feel the weight of his stare. I waved up at him, trying to appear casual, but he didn't wave back. Tyler seemed to sense the tension. "Well, I should probably head home anyway. Early meeting tomorrow." "Of course," I said, though disappointment flooded through me. "Thanks for walking me home. This was really nice." "Maybe we could do it again sometime?" he asked, his voice hopeful but cautious now. I glanced up at the balcony again. Victor was still there, still watching. "Maybe," I said softly. Tyler smiled and squeezed my hand briefly before turning to leave. "Good night, Irene." "Good night," I called after him, probably louder than necessary. Let Victor hear. Let him know that other men found me interesting, attractive, worth their time. I took my time getting to the elevator, checking my reflection in the lobby mirror, adjusting my hair. By the time I reached our apartment door, I'd constructed my defense. It was innocent, just a friendly conversation. Victor was being paranoid, controlling, jealous for no reason. The door opened before I could get my key out. "What took you so long?" Victor's voice was quiet, controlled, but I caught the edge underneath. "I ran into Tyler from the gym," I said breezily, brushing past him into our apartment. "He offered to walk me home. Wasn't that nice?" Victor closed the door with deliberate care, the soft click somehow more ominous than if he'd slammed it. I saw. Saw what? Two people having a conversation. I kicked off my heels and headed toward our bedroom, hoping to end this before it started. "Irene." His voice stopped me in the hallway. When I turned, I saw something in his expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, exactly, but something colder, more final. "We need to talk." "About what? About me having a friend?" I crossed my arms, going on the offensive. "I'm sorry if you think I should just sit at home every night waiting for you to look up from your computer." Victor's jaw clenched, and for a moment, I thought he might actually raise his voice. But he didn't. He just nodded slowly, as if confirming something to himself. "Maybe tomorrow," he said quietly. "When you're sober." The accusation stung because it was partially true. I had been drinking, but I wasn't drunk, just relaxed, happy, something I hadn't felt at home in a long time. "I'm not drunk," I said, but Victor had already turned away, heading toward our daughter Maya's room to check on her. I stood alone in the hallway, the silence of our apartment pressing down on me. Through the thin walls, I could hear the Hendersons' television, the distant sound of traffic, the normal sounds of evening life. But inside our home, there was only this heavy quiet, broken by the soft murmur of Victor's voice as he whispered goodnight to Maya. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. "Thanks for the great evening. Hope we can do it again soon." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. I should delete it. I should tell him it was a mistake, that I was married and shouldn't be meeting other men for drinks. Instead, I typed back, "Me too. Sleep well." As I got ready for bed, I caught sight of myself in the bathroom mirror. My cheeks were still flushed, my eyes bright with an excitement I hadn't felt in years. Tyler made me feel young again, interesting, desirable. Was that so wrong? Victor was already in bed when I slipped under the covers, his back turned to me. The space between us felt like an ocean. "Victor," I whispered into the darkness. He didn't respond, but I knew he was awake. I could tell by his breathing, by the tension in his shoulders. "It was nothing," I said softly. "Just a friend walking me home." Still nothing. Just that awful silence stretching between us. I closed my eyes and tried to recapture the feeling from earlier. Tyler's laugh, his attention, the way he'd looked at me like I was the most fascinating woman in the world. But all I could see was Victor's silhouette on the balcony, watching us from above. The next morning arrived with the uncomfortable brightness of a hangover I didn't quite have, and the weight of Victor's disapproval I couldn't quite shake. I found him in the kitchen, making coffee with the methodical precision he brought to everything, measuring grounds, timing the brew, arranging Maya's breakfast with military efficiency. "Morning," I said, trying for normalcy. He glanced up briefly. "Morning. Maya's lunch is packed. She has soccer practice after school." The domestic details felt like a shield between us, safe territory, where we could pretend last night hadn't happened. But I could see it in the set of his shoulders, the way he avoided my eyes. Victor was processing, calculating, planning. It's what made him such a good accountant and such a frustrating husband. "About last night," I started. "Maya, breakfast," he called, cutting me off. Our 7-year-old daughter bounded into the kitchen, her dark hair in the messy ponytail I'd attempted before my shower. She looked so much like Victor, serious brown eyes, that careful way of observing before speaking. "Morning, sweetheart," I said, kissing the top of her head. "Why were you laughing so loud last night, Mummy?" Maya asked, climbing into her chair. It woke me up. I felt heat creep up my neck. Was I being loud? I didn't realize. You were with a man, Maya continued matter-of-factly, stabbing her pancakes with her fork. I saw from my window. Daddy was on the balcony watching. Victor's coffee mug paused halfway to his lips. Our eyes met across the kitchen table, and I saw something flicker in his expression. Embarrassment, maybe, or resignation. Sometimes adults talk loudly when they're excited about something, I said carefully. The man was just a friend from Mommy's gym. Why don't you talk that loud with Daddy? Maya asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. Victor set down his mug and stood abruptly. I need to get to the office early today, he said. Maya, finish your breakfast. After he left, the apartment felt different somehow, smaller. I kept catching myself listening for his key in the door, rehearsing explanations I'd never get to give. At work, I threw myself into HR administrative tasks, approving vacation requests and updating employee files. But my mind kept wandering to Tyler, to the way he'd smiled when I'd laughed, to the text message I'd sent back. Earth to Irene, said Jenna, my closest friend at the office, sliding into the chair across from my desk. You look like you're somewhere else entirely. Jenna was the kind of friend who encouraged my harmless fun, as she called it. At 31 and recently divorced, she lived vicariously through what she saw as my perfect marriage, while simultaneously pushing me to live a little. Just tired, I said, but I couldn't help smiling. That's not a tired smile. That's a something interesting happened smile. Jenna leaned forward conspiratorially. Spill. So I told her about Tyler, about the drinks, about the walk home. I made it sound casual, fun, innocent. I didn't mention Victor on the balcony or the cold silence that had followed me to sleep. Good for you, Jenna said when I finished. Victor's a nice guy, but he's so serious all the time. You deserve to have some fun. It's not like that, I protested, but weakly. We're just friends. Friends who have chemistry, Jenna said with a knowing look. There's nothing wrong with enjoying male attention, Irene. You're a beautiful woman. You shouldn't have to hide that just because you're married. Her words echoed in my head all afternoon. Why should I feel guilty for being friendly? For laughing? For enjoying myself? That evening, I decided to test the waters at home. Victor was in his usual spot at the dining room table, laptop open, papers spread around him like a fortress. Maya was coloring in the living room, her tongue poking out in concentration. How was everyone's day? I asked brightly, setting down plates for dinner. Fine, Victor said without looking up. Maya, honey, come eat. As we sat around the table, Victor still glancing at his laptop between bites, I found myself filling the silence with chatter about my day, about the weather, about anything that might break through his wall of politeness. Oh, and Tyler texted to thank me for the nice evening, I said casually, watching Victor's reaction. Wasn't that sweet? Victor's fork paused midway to his mouth. Did he? He's really very nice. I think you'd like him if you met him properly. I'm sure I would, Victor said, but his tone suggested the opposite. Maya looked between us, her young face creased with confusion. Are you and Daddy fighting? Of course not, sweetheart, I said quickly. Daddy's just tired from work. Your mother made a new friend, Victor said quietly. She's excited about it. There was something in his tone that made me defensive. There's nothing wrong with having friends, Victor. No, he agreed, there isn't. But the way he said it, the careful neutrality of his voice felt like an accusation. I found myself getting angry, the same rebellious feeling from the night before rising in my chest. You know what? Maybe if you paid half as much attention to me as you do to those spreadsheets, I wouldn't need to find conversation elsewhere. The words came out harsher than I'd intended. Maya's eyes went wide, and Victor finally looked up from his laptop, really looked at me, for the first time all day. You're right, he said simply. I have been working too much. His agreement deflated my anger, leaving me feeling strangely empty. I'd wanted a fight, wanted him to get jealous, to show some emotion. Instead, he was being reasonable, taking responsibility, making me feel like the unreasonable one. I didn't mean, I started. Can I be excused? Maya asked in a small voice. Of course, baby, I said, watching our daughter flee to her room. Victor and I sat in silence, the weight of our unfinished argument settling between us like dust. Finally, he closed his laptop and looked at me directly. Irene, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. My heart started beating faster. Okay. Are you happy? In this marriage, I mean. With me? The question caught me off guard. I'd expected accusations, jealousy, anger, not this quiet vulnerability. Of course I am, I said, but the words felt hollow even to me. Victor nodded slowly, as if my hesitation had told him everything he needed to know. I think, he said carefully, that we need to talk about what we both want, really want, from this marriage, from each other. Victor, you're making this into something it's not. Tyler is just a friend. I know, he said, and somehow that was worse than if he'd accused me of cheating. That's not what I'm worried about. He stood up, gathering his papers, with the same methodical care he brought to everything. I'm going to stay at my mother's tonight, he said. Give us both some space to think. You don't have to do that, I said, panic creeping into my voice. We can work this out. I hope so, Victor said, but right now, I think we both need some perspective. After he left, I sat alone at our dining room table, staring at the empty plates and wondering how a simple walk home had led to this. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother, Sharon. How are things, honey? Without thinking, I called her. Mum, Victor's being completely unreasonable, I said as soon as she answered. He's jealous because I had a friendly conversation with someone. Men can be so insecure, Sharon said sympathetically. You're young, Irene. You should be able to have friends, to enjoy yourself. Victor should be grateful to have such a beautiful, interesting wife. Her words were exactly what I wanted to hear, validation that I wasn't the problem here. Victor was being controlling, paranoid, jealous for no reason. But as I hung up and looked around our empty apartment, Maya already asleep in her room, I couldn't shake the memory of Victor's question. Are you happy? The honest answer scared me more than his anger would have. The next few days passed in a strange, suspended animation. Victor stayed at his mother Sandra's house, coming by each morning to take Maya to school and returning in the evenings for dinner and homework time. We were polite to each other, careful, like strangers sharing an elevator. At work, I found myself checking my phone constantly for messages from Tyler. He texted twice more, once asking about my day, once sharing a funny meme, and each time I felt that same little thrill of being noticed, wanted. You're glowing, Jenna observed during our coffee break. This Tyler thing is really agreeing with you. I looked around the break room to make sure we were alone. It's not a thing, we're just texting. Texting is how it starts, she said with a knowing smile. Trust me, I've been there. The excitement, the butterflies, feeling alive again. I'm married, Jenna. So, you're not dead. There's nothing wrong with a little harmless flirtation. It might even be good for your marriage, make Victor appreciate what he has. But Victor didn't seem to be appreciating anything. If anything, his careful politeness was worse than anger would have been. At least anger would have shown he cared. Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Sandra's name appeared on the screen, and my stomach clenched. Victor's mother had never been my biggest fan, but we'd maintained a cordial relationship for Maya's sake. Hello, Sandra, I said, trying to sound normal. Irene. Her voice was crisp, formal. I think we need to talk. About what? About my son sleeping on my couch because his wife is entertaining other men. The words hit like a slap. It's not what you think. Isn't it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're having some kind of midlife crisis and dragging my family through it. Sandra, please. Victor is overreacting. I had a friendly conversation with someone, that's all. A friendly conversation that had you laughing loud enough to wake Maya. A friendly conversation that has Victor questioning his entire marriage. I felt tears prick my eyes. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen, didn't it? And now my granddaughter is asking why Daddy doesn't sleep at home anymore. The guilt hit me like a physical blow. Maya had been quieter lately, more clingy when Victor was around. I'd told myself she didn't notice, that kids were resilient. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "I want you to decide what's more important, your marriage and your daughter, or whatever thrill you're getting from this other man." After she hung up, I sat in my office staring at my computer screen, Sandra's words echoing in my head. Was I having a midlife crisis? Was I really putting my marriage at risk for a few text messages and the memory of feeling attractive? My phone buzzed. "Tyler, hope you're having a good day. Been thinking about our conversation the other night." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Sandra was right. I needed to decide what was important. My marriage, my daughter, my family. But then I remembered how alive I'd felt walking home with Tyler, how long it had been since Victor had made me feel that way. Was it so wrong to want to feel desired? I typed back, "Me too. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime." The response came quickly. "I'd love that. Tomorrow after work." "It's a date," I wrote, then immediately regretted the word choice. But before I could send a correction, my office door opened. "Irene." It was my supervisor, Helen, looking uncomfortable. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" I quickly locked my phone and gave her my attention. "Of course, what's up?" Helen closed the door behind her and sat down across from my desk. "I've been getting some questions about your conduct outside of work." My blood ran cold. "What kind of questions?" "Look, what you do on your own time is your business. But when it starts affecting workplace morale, or when employees start gossiping about management..." She trailed off meaningfully. "Who's been talking?" I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. "It doesn't matter who. What matters is that you are in a position of authority here. You handle sensitive employee information, mediate conflicts, represent the company's values. You need to be above reproach." "I haven't done anything wrong," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. "Maybe not, but perception matters, Irene. And right now, the perception is that you're having some kind of personal crisis that's spilling over into your professional life." After Helen left, I sat alone in my office, feeling like the walls were closing in. Someone had been talking, probably someone who'd seen Tyler and me at the bistro or heard about it secondhand. In a company this size, gossip traveled fast. I thought about calling Victor, about apologizing, about asking him to come home. But pride held me back. I hadn't done anything wrong. Why should I have to apologize for having a friend? That evening, Victor came by for dinner as usual. Maya chatted about her day at school, while he helped her with homework, the picture of devoted fatherhood. I watched them together and felt a pang of something. Loss, maybe, or regret. "How long is this going to go on?" I asked after Maya went to bed. Victor looked up from packing his briefcase. "How long is what going to go on?" "This, you staying at your mother's, us pretending everything's normal for Maya's sake." "I'm not pretending anything," he said quietly. "I'm trying to figure out how to move forward." "By punishing me? By making me feel like a criminal for having a conversation?" Victor stopped packing and looked at me directly. "Irene, I saw you with him. The way you were laughing, touching his arm, leaning in close. That wasn't just a conversation. You're being paranoid." "Am I? Because from where I was standing, it looked like my wife was on a date with another man." The word date hung between us. I wanted to deny it, to insist it wasn't like that. But Tyler and I were meeting for coffee tomorrow. What would Victor call that? "I'm trying to save our marriage," Victor said, shouldering his briefcase. "But I can't do it alone." After he left, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the balcony where he'd stood watching us. From up here, I could see the spot where Tyler and I had lingered, talking and laughing. It looked so innocent from this distance, just two people on a sidewalk, But I remembered the feeling, the electricity, the way my heart had raced when he'd touched my hand. That hadn't been innocent at all. My phone buzzed with a text from Jenna. "How are you holding up?" "Not great," I typed back. "Victor's still at his mum's. Work is getting weird, starting to think this was all a mistake." "Don't let them make you feel guilty for being happy," she responded. "You deserve to feel alive, Irene. Don't let anyone take that away from you." But as I sat alone on my balcony, looking down at the empty street below, I wondered if feeling alive was worth everything I might lose. Friday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was getting Maya ready for school when the doorbell rang, and I opened it to find Brian, Victor's older brother, standing in the hallway with a grim expression. "Brian, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk," he said, brushing past me into the apartment. "Maya, go brush your teeth, honey." My daughter looked between us uncertainly before disappearing down the hall. Brian waited until we heard the bathroom door close before turning to face me. "What the hell are you doing, Irene?" The bluntness of his question caught me off guard. Brian had always been the diplomatic one in Victor's family, the peacekeeper. To see him this angry was unsettling. "I don't know what Victor told you, but..." "He didn't have to tell me anything. Mum did. The whole family knows you're running around with some guy while my brother sleeps on our mother's couch." "It's not like that," I said, but the words felt automatic now, rehearsed. "Then what is it like? Because from where we're sitting, it looks like you're having an affair and destroying your family." "I'm not having an affair." The words came out louder than I intended. "I had drinks with a friend, that's all." Brian's expression didn't soften. "A friend you're texting, a friend you're meeting for coffee today." My blood ran cold. "How do you know about that?" "Because Victor knows, Irene. He's not stupid. He can see what's happening, even if you can't." I sank onto the couch, suddenly feeling exhausted. "I don't understand how this got so out of hand. It's just coffee." "Is it? Because the way I see it, you're choosing this other guy over your husband and daughter. Every text you send, every secret meeting, every lie you tell, you're choosing him." "I'm not lying about anything." "Aren't you? When Maya asks where Daddy is, what do you tell her? When your co-workers ask about your marriage, what do you say? When you look in the mirror, what story do you tell yourself?" His questions hit like physical blows. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but the words wouldn't come. "Victor loves you," Brian continued, his voice softer now. "He's loved you since college, but he won't fight for someone who doesn't want to be fought for." After he left, I sat alone in my living room, staring at my phone. Tyler's last message was still there. "Looking forward to coffee today." I thought about cancelling, about texting Victor instead, about trying to fix what I'd broken. But then I remembered Sandra's accusations, Brian's anger, the way everyone seemed to think they knew what was best for me. Maybe I deserved to have coffee with someone who made me feel interesting. Maybe I deserved to feel alive. The coffee shop Tyler had suggested was across town, far from my usual haunts. I told myself it was because he lived in that neighborhood, not because I was trying to avoid being seen. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups in front of him. He stood when he saw me, and I felt that familiar flutter of attraction. "You look beautiful," he said, kissing my cheek in greeting. "Thank you," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "You didn't have to get me coffee." "I remembered how you liked it from the other night. 2 sugars, splash of cream." The fact that he'd remembered such a small detail made me smile. When was the last time Victor had noticed how I took my coffee? "So," Tyler said, settling back in his chair, "how's your week been?" "Complicated," I admitted. "My husband and I are going through a rough patch." Tyler's expression grew serious. "I'm sorry to hear that. Is it because of the other night?" I wanted to lie, to make it seem like our marriage problems were separate from him. But sitting across from Tyler, looking into his concerned eyes, I found myself telling the truth. "Partly. Victor saw us together and got the wrong idea." "Did he? Get the wrong idea, I mean." The question hung between us, loaded with possibility. I knew what he was really asking, what we were both thinking. "I don't know," I said quietly. Tyler reached across the table and covered my hand with his. "Irene, I need you to know, I'm not trying to break up your marriage, but I also can't pretend I don't feel something when I'm with you." His words sent warmth through me, the same intoxicating feeling I'd had walking home with him. Here was someone who saw me, wanted me, made me feel like the most important person in the room. "I feel it too," I admitted. We talked for 2 hours, about everything and nothing. He told me about his childhood, his dreams, his failed relationships. I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't in years, sharing thoughts and feelings I'd kept buried. When we finally left the coffee shop, Tyler walked me to my car. "I know this is complicated," he said, standing close enough that I could smell his cologne. "But I'd like to see you again." "Tyler," I started, but he placed a gentle finger on my lips. "Just think about it," he said. "You deserve to be happy, Irene. You deserve to be with someone who appreciates you." On the drive home, his words echoed in my head. "You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be appreciated." When was the last time Victor had made me feel appreciated? But as I pulled into my parking space and saw Victor's car already there, guilt crashed over me like a wave. Through our apartment window, I could see him helping Maya with something, probably homework or a school project. The picture of domestic stability I was threatening to destroy. I sat in my car for several minutes, trying to compose myself. When I finally went upstairs, I found Victor and Maya in the kitchen, making dinner together. "Mommy," Maya ran to hug me. "Daddy's making his special pasta." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said, avoiding Victor's eyes. "How was your day?" he asked politely, not looking up from the stove. "Fine, just errands and things." It was a lie, and we both knew it, but Victor just nodded and continued stirring the sauce. During dinner, Maya chatted about school, while Victor and I maintained careful conversation about neutral topics. The weather, Maya's upcoming soccer game, plans for the weekend. But I could feel the weight of unspoken words between us. After Maya went to bed, Victor started gathering his things again. "Are you ever coming home?" I asked. He paused in packing his briefcase. "Are you ever going to stop seeing him?" The directness of his question caught me off guard. "I don't know what you mean." "Irene, please, don't insult my intelligence. I know you were with him today." "How could you possibly know that?" Victor pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It was Tyler and me at the coffee shop, his hand covering mine across the table. Someone had taken it through the window and sent it to Victor. "Who sent you this?" I demanded. "Does it matter? What matters is that you lied to me. Again." I stared at the photo, seeing us through Victor's eyes. We looked intimate, romantic, like lovers meeting in secret, which, I realized with a sinking heart, was exactly what we were becoming. "Victor, I can explain." "No," he said quietly, putting his phone away. "You can't, because there's no explanation that makes this okay." He finished packing in silence while I stood frozen in the doorway, watching my marriage crumble in real time. "I'll be back tomorrow morning to take Maya to her game," he said, shouldering his bag. "We need to talk about next steps." "What kind of next steps?" Victor paused at the door, his hand on the knob. When he looked back at me, his eyes were sadder than I'd ever seen them. The kind where we stop pretending this marriage can survive what you're doing to it. After he left, I sat on our couch and stared at my phone. Tyler had texted, "Thank you for a wonderful afternoon. You're amazing." For the first time since this all started, his words didn't make me feel better. They just made me feel more alone. Saturday morning arrived grey and drizzling, matching my mood perfectly. I'd barely slept, replaying Victor's words over and over. "We need to talk about next steps." The phrase had an ominous finality that made my stomach churn. Victor arrived promptly at 9 to pick up Maya for her soccer game. Our daughter bounced around excitedly in her uniform, while I tried to read his expression. He was polite, distant, treating me like a casual acquaintance. "I'll have her back by 3, he said, helping Maya with her cleats. "Victor, about yesterday." "Not now," he said quietly, glancing at Maya. "Tonight, after she's in bed." The hours dragged by. I cleaned the apartment obsessively, reorganized closets, did laundry, anything to keep my hands busy and my mind from spiraling. But I couldn't escape the growing certainty that my marriage was ending. Around noon, my phone rang. Jenna. "Hey girl, how did coffee go yesterday?" she asked, her voice bright with curiosity. It was... I paused, not sure how to explain the mix of elation and guilt I felt. It was really nice, but I think I'm in trouble. What kind of trouble? I told her about the photo, about Victor's reaction, about his ominous promise to talk tonight. As I spoke, I could hear the doubt creeping into my own voice. "Irene, listen to me," Jenna said when I finished. "You can't live your life walking on eggshells around Victor's insecurities. You had coffee with a friend. That's not a crime. But the photo made it look like more than that. So what if it did? You're allowed to have feelings, to be attracted to someone, to enjoy male attention. That doesn't make you a bad person." But even as Jenna spoke, I found myself thinking about Maya's confused questions, about Sandra's anger, about the hurt in Victor's eyes. Was I really just enjoying innocent attention, or was I destroying my family for a fantasy? Victor and Maya returned at exactly 3 o'clock, both muddy and laughing. Maya's team had won, and she was bursting with excitement about her assist on the winning goal. "Did you see, Mummy? I passed it right to Jessica and she scored." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said, trying to match her enthusiasm while watching Victor from the corner of my eye. He seemed lighter with Maya, more like his old self. It was only when he looked at me that the shutters came down. We had dinner as a family, pizza and Maya's favorite fruit salad, and for a brief moment, I could pretend everything was normal. Maya chatted about the game, about school, about her friend's upcoming birthday party. Victor listened attentively, asking questions, making her laugh. This was what I was risking, this warmth, this connection, this family we'd built together. After Maya went to bed, Victor and I sat across from each other at the dining room table, like negotiators preparing for battle. He'd brought a manila folder, which he placed carefully in front of him. "We need to make some decisions," he said without preamble. "Victor, before you say anything, I want you to know that I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go this far." He nodded slowly. "I believe you didn't mean to, but they did go this far, didn't they?" I couldn't deny it. The coffee date, the texts, the way I'd felt sitting across from Tyler, it had definitely gone further than innocent friendship. "I think," Victor continued, "that we need to be honest about what's happening here. You're not happy in our marriage. You haven't been for a while." "That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you looked at me the way you looked at him in that photo? When was the last time you laughed with me the way you laughed with him on the street?" His questions hit home because I couldn't answer them. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt that spark with Victor, that excitement, that sense of possibility. "Marriage isn't just about excitement," I said weakly. "No, it's not. It's about commitment, respect, partnership. It's about choosing each other every day, even when it's hard." He paused, his voice growing quieter. "But you haven't been choosing me, Irene. You've been choosing him. I haven't done anything. You've been emotionally cheating on me for weeks, maybe longer." Victor opened the folder and pulled out several sheets of paper. "I know about all the texts. I know about the coffee dates. I know you've been telling people our marriage is in trouble while telling me everything's fine." My blood ran cold. "How do you know about the texts?" "Because I hired someone to find out what was really going on. Because my wife was lying to me, and I needed to know the truth." He slid a photograph across the table. It showed Tyler and me at the coffee shop, but this one was clearer, taken from a different angle. In it, you could see my face clearly. The way I was smiling, the way I was leaning toward him, the obvious attraction in my expression. "There are more," Victor said quietly. "Pictures of you at the bistro, screenshots of your text conversations, records of your phone calls." I stared at the evidence of my betrayal, seeing it through Victor's eyes. There was no denying what it looked like, because it was exactly what it looked like. "You had me followed," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I had my marriage investigated, because the woman I loved was becoming a stranger, and I needed to understand why." More photographs followed. Tyler and me laughing outside the gym. Tyler and me sharing dessert at another restaurant I'd forgotten about. Each image was a nail in the coffin of our marriage. "Victor, please, it's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is. Explain to me how secret meetings and intimate conversations and lying to your husband is something other than what it looks like." I opened my mouth to defend myself, but no words came. How could I explain the loneliness I'd felt, the way Tyler made me feel alive again, the gradual erosion of connection between Victor and me? How could I make him understand without sounding like I was blaming him for my choices? "I was lonely," I finally said. "I felt invisible in our marriage. Tyler made me feel seen." Victor absorbed this quietly. "So, instead of talking to me about feeling lonely, you decided to find that connection with someone else." "I tried to talk to you. You were always working, always distracted. So this is my fault?" "No, that's not what I'm saying." I was crying now, tears of frustration and guilt and fear. "I'm saying our marriage was broken, and instead of fixing it, I ran away from it." "Yes," Victor said simply. "You did." The admission hung between us like a bridge I'd burned. There was no going back from it, no way to pretend this was all a misunderstanding. "What happens now?" I asked. Victor pulled out another set of papers. "I've consulted with a lawyer. These are separation papers. I'm not filing for divorce yet, but I think we need some space to figure out what we both want." "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. Irene, you're in love with someone else. Maybe you haven't admitted it to yourself yet, but you are. And I can't compete with that." "I'm not in love with Tyler," I protested. But even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. "Aren't you? Because from these photos, from these texts, it sure looks like you are." I stared at the papers, the legal language that would formalize the end of everything we'd built together. "What about Maya?" "Maya will be fine. We'll share custody, make sure she knows she's loved, that this isn't her fault." Victor's voice was steady, but I could see the pain in his eyes. Kids are resilient, but they also deserve parents who are honest about their feelings. "I don't want a separation," I said desperately. "I want to fix this." "Do you? Or do you want to keep Tyler and have me too?" The question stopped me cold because I didn't know the answer. Part of me did want both, the security and stability of my marriage, and the excitement and passion I felt with Tyler, but I couldn't have both, could I? "I need time to think," I said. "You've had time, weeks of it, time you spent with him instead of working on us." Victor stood up, leaving the papers on the table. "I'll be staying at Mom's indefinitely. You can have the apartment. I'll come by to see Maya and get my things." "Victor, please." "I love you, Irene. I probably always will, but I won't be married to someone who's in love with someone else." After he left, I sat alone at the table, staring at the separation papers and the photographs of my betrayal. In the images, I looked happy, alive, radiant. I looked like a woman in love. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Victor was right. I was in love with Tyler, or at least with the way he made me feel, and in pursuing that feeling, I'd destroyed the most important relationship in my life. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. "Thinking about you. Hope you're having a good weekend." For the first time since this all began, his message didn't make me smile. It just made me feel more alone than ever. The lawyer's conference room smelled like burnt coffee and endings. Across the table, Victor looked like a man who had already buried something. Rebecca Chen slid the final document forward. Divorce, adultery, primary custody to Victor. Me. Every other weekend and one midweek dinner, provided I don't have romantic guests when Maya is present. Then came the photos, yesterday, the day before, last week. Tyler's hand on my waist outside his apartment, my mouth on his in the park, the look on my face I never let Victor see anymore. I stared at the glossy proof until the images blurred. Victor didn't gloat. He just said quietly, "You chose." I opened my mouth to argue, to beg, to promise I'd end it with Tyler that same night. But the word stuck, because the pictures didn't lie. I had chosen. Every single day for weeks, I had chosen the man who made my pulse race over the man who paid the mortgage and coached Maya's soccer team and still kissed me goodnight even when I turned away. Rebecca gathered the folders. "We'll see you in mediation." Victor stood. For 1 second, I thought he might reach for me, some old reflex. Instead, he just looked tired. "Maya thinks you're working late a lot," he said. "I'd like to keep it that way for now." Then he walked out. My phone buzzed. "Tyler, dinner still on? I miss you already." I stared at the heart emoji until it looked ridiculous. I typed, "Rain check." Something came up, 3 dots, then nothing. That night I sat alone in the house that already smelled less like us. Maya's drawings were still on the fridge, but half the coats were gone from the hall closet. I opened the drawer where I kept the good stationery, the kind we used for birthday thank yous and Christmas cards, and wrote a letter I would never send. "Victor, you were right. I didn't leave for Tyler. I left the minute I decided my happiness mattered more than everyone else's. I'm sorry isn't big enough, but it's all I have left." I folded it, put it back in the drawer and closed it. Some choices don't get rewrites. I made mine in stolen lunches and parked cars, and the second I let another man tell me I was beautiful when my husband was too tired to notice. Now the judge, the lawyers, and the custody schedule will make sure I never forget what that choice cost. Victor didn't take our daughter from me. I handed her over the day I decided feeling wanted was worth more than keeping my family whole. And no amount of new love butterflies will ever quiet the sound of Maya asking why Daddy doesn't live here anymore.